I think we're live. Let's start.
Yeah, you can start, Wendila.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, participants. A warm welcome to all of you. We will begin the session with a short video about our university. Himadri, if you can play the short video about Sister Nivedita University and the vibrant life that we have at the campus.
Holistic, value-based, experiential. Learning is always comprehensive at SMU. Located at Newtown, Rajarhat, Kolkata, SMU lies close to the new corporate hub of the city. Established through the enactment of the Sister Nivedita University Act 2017, SNU is deeply inspired by the thoughts and teachings of Swami Vivekananda and Sister Nivedita. Housing an environment of inclusiveness, the university promises to provide education to all without any bias based on class, social status, creed, religion, or gender. The SNU campus boasts of a well-designed, ergonomical infrastructure with educational facilities par global standards. Also provides students with accommodation facilities that harbor an interactive, healthy, hygienic, and academic-oriented environment. Moreover, healthy, home-cooked food items are served in the cafeteria.
At SNU का फूड कोर्ट हम लोग खोले हैं। यहाँ पर हम लोग इंडियन, चाइनीज, बंगाली और भी डिशेस रखने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं और फूड क्वालिटी में कोई कॉम्प्रोमाइज हम लोग नहीं करते हैं।
With well-coordinated routes covering all parts of the city provide a smooth, safe and convenient transport service.
In addition to providing playground, indoor games facilities, we have set up yoga center here. We have an agreement with the Korean organization, a special type of martial arts, Taekwondo.
SMU, it has been a life-changing experience for me.
At SMU, I believe I have made a right decision to join this university.
At SMU, I have started becoming a good human, discovering new ideas and innovation, which comes along with creativity and excellence. I have started enjoying my life at SMU, and I hope you will enjoy it here too.
Well, that was a little snippet of our life at the university, and we're definitely missing our students. Moving ahead, this session.
Wendila, our
Yes.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, will join us later. So maybe Dr. Dasgupta can take it.
Right. Okay, ma'am. Okay, yes. This session promises to be very interesting as we have a very special guest. One of the leading 3D artists and street painters of chalk drawings, Tracy Lee Stum. Thank you so much for being here. Her painting has garnered global attention primarily because she uses visual devices such as anamorphic projections for paintings on flat surfaces. In other words, She creates beautiful and crazy magical worlds with just a couple of sticks of chalk and a slab of concrete. In fact, she has perfected the interactive 3D format of painting. Her constant endeavor has been to push the boundaries of interactive art form. Her focus has been on wanting to remove the barrier between art and the audience in a way that will compel the viewer to engage with her work of art. Simply put, she has managed to make art come alive. A very interesting feat indeed. She manages to impregnate art with a certain vitality that engages the viewer constantly. In her own words, taken from the TEDx talk that she'd had a few years ago, the viewers will need to play with the art form. She's also often known to incorporate humor and context into her work to make it more captivating. Napoleon escaping his picture frame, or the audience playing chess with the Dalai Lama. Very interesting indeed. She at one point held the Guinness World Record for the largest chalk painting by an individual. Through her diverse and conventional work, she promotes education, awareness, and positive cross-cultural communication. In recent years, she's also opened a 3D museum with the name Tracy Lee Stum Museum at American Dream. We are indeed extremely grateful to her for being with us today. We're eagerly waiting for her to share her views, especially when, despite the time difference, she's managed to be with us. Thank you so much. I would request our Director of Mass Communication and Journalism, Design and Fine Arts, Professor Gurushik Dasgupta, to give the welcome address. So.
Well, thank you, Andrina. And really, we are very happy and honored to have you among us. I mean, virtually. We always hope that we will be able to have you here at the university campus in physically sometime very soon. Anyway, Tracy is a good friend of our head of the department, Shoma, and I'm sure Shoma will be able to give more details about her various activities, which to some extent Oindrila described. But I was rather impressed by some of her achievements, like, I mean, she privately learned the art at the very beginning, and then formally did her training in the art school in Philadelphia, and then went on to have a training in Florence, Italy, which is for us is the center, the epicenter of artistic imagination. So we are eagerly looking forward to Tracy's new achievements. And one thing which also makes us curious, how she became also a Guinness Book of World Record holder. That's also something very interesting. So let us hear more about her achievement. And as I said, we would be very looking forward to her coming to the university campus. You know, SNU is the Department of the Art and Design is a very unique department. It is the campus is located in the city's biggest art museum. You know, it has a wonderful location. I mean, the students who study art here has the environment of actually learning and doing what they should do from the very beginning itself. And we have a very wonderful team of artists as the faculty, led by Shoma. And the students I have interacted, though fine arts is, it's my passion, but then it is not my subject. I find the students who study here are extremely dedicated. And so I'm sure it will be a great experience for the students to interact with Tracy, and they will learn and look forward to Tracy coming to India again. She has her Indian connection. We came to know today itself. So I'm sure she'll be coming to India very, very often. And we look forward to Tracy coming physically to the wonderful campus of Sister Nivedita University. Thank you. Over to Oindrila and maybe Shoma.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dasgupta. Indeed, she has a Kolkata connect. Moving on, I would request, I can see Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, our Honorable Vice Chancellor among us. I would request Professor Chattopadhyay to kindly give his address. Sir, are you, so will you be able to, sir, are you there? I can see him. I'm not sure if he's, I can see, I've just seen, I did see him.
I think his mic is mute.
Yes, he's muted probably, but I can see him anyway. Should we take a few minutes to just wait for him, or should we? Okay.
Maybe Shoma could continue, and then our Vice Chancellor.
Yes, when he joins. Okay,
Yeah,
he's here.
yeah.
Sir,
Sir is here.
Sir, yes. And ladies and gentlemen, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay. Sir, your address.
Thank you, Indrila. Thank you, Madam Bose. Thank you, Dr. Burship Dasgupta, and definitely our honored guest for USA, the visual artist, Tracy Lee Stum, who actually is famous for her unique three-dimensional chalk drawings, which is very interesting, actually. I'm sure the students are going to really enrich, not only the students, all of us are going to enrich our understanding about these three-dimensional chalk drawings. And because already you have received multiple awards, but definitely on behalf of the Sister Nivedita University, we also want to felicitate you for your contribution and recognition by the Guinness Book of World Records whenever next time you will come to Kolkata. Looking forward to that occasion, and let us all pray that we are going to get out of this pandemic situation pretty soon, and we all are going to meet together, have the interaction, so that it will be very, very important for all of us. Looking forward to your deliberations. I like also to thank this Shoma and her colleagues and the students who are participating today, along with the other faculty members, for joining us in this evening webinar. Thank you.
Thank you,
Let's move
sir.
on.
Thank you, sir, for this inspiring words. Indeed, Sister Nivedita University has a thriving Department of Fine Arts and Design, and I'm sure students will learn so much today. Several young minds will be inspired definitely after hearing Ms. Stum speak, and will explore their creative genes, I'm sure. The session today will be
over
moderated.
here. I just want to mention also that you know that we have a very
So you've been muted, so you just got muted. If you can unmute yourself.
we have also a very important architecture department, and our principal of architecture, Manish Chakraborty, is also here, who is very much involved in restoration of heritage buildings and lot of different conservation processes. And I'm sure, Professor Chakraborty, after Tracy's lecture, you can also let us know about certain things which are becoming very, very important. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the welcome.
The session will be moderated by our Professor Shoma Bhome, HOD of Fine Arts and Design Department at Sister Nivedita University. Without further ado, I'm sure all of us are waiting for Shoma's session. Carry on. Shoma, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Indrila. First of all, thank you, Tracy, for giving me time from student days to till now. Whenever I request you for demonstration or something, you are always there. Especially thanks all of you, the SNU team who are participated and support me a lot to organize this event. And today I'll not talk much, rather than I'll look forward to see your work again and again, which I love to do. And Tracy, as we know, today we'll not talk about typical painting or sculpture or something conventional media. We'll talk something you are really adopted and create a new language in our visual field. I'll request every participant that if they can, they have any query, they can ask after this session. And I'll request to Tracy to share your works. Then in the middle, I'll interrupt you for sure.
Thank you, Shoma. I really appreciate the intro, and thank you everyone at SNU for the warm welcome. I'm very honored to be here and to share a little bit of my knowledge with your students and anyone of interest who's joined us. I regret that I can't be there in person. That's my one regret. I'd love to be there with each of you and share personally, but that will come in the future. So have no doubt. Yeah. So yeah, thank you again for the warm welcome. Is very, very kind.
So, can you share a little bit about your works from the academic to the transformation to the new concept or new form of art which you are adopted?
From the academic, gosh, let's see. Well, I actually I don't think I have any photos of my academic work from college, unfortunately, but I have some early street painting works that I can show. I can talk a little bit about that. Yes. Let's see, I was very interested in art as a young child, and I was singularly focused on the act of drawing. This was not something that was, just a passing fancy. It was a complete and utter focus for me as a young person. So my parents were able to see that this was not going away, and they decided to encourage that investigation. So I started a path of art very early on in my life. And I wound up after high school going to college for a 4-year degree in painting and drawing at Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia. And that school was fantastic in that it was a school that was focusing on conceptual and contemporary practices. It was a program that allowed me to explore development of my art practice and my concepts and theories about art. It was, a place of discovery and discussion about where art is going and what we are as artists are. So that I didn't really learn all of the technical aspects of my craft until later, but the critical thinking that went behind approaching my work was developed at that school. So I was very grateful for that. As I moved out of that, I later discovered that I wanted to enhance my ability to, make paintings, make images. And some of that wound up forcing me to go back to the classics. So that's when I wound up going to Florence to study over there, because in Florence, they have fantastic schools that offer the traditional studies behind art making images. And I was able to learn some of the techniques and methods that the master artists from the Renaissance have created, and have been propagated as artist generations come along. So there's a lineage of history there, there's a lineage of practice, and I was fortunate enough to be able to tap into that. So the combination of that with the contemporary thinking about art was a blessing for me at the time. I thought they were two disjointed things. I wasn't sure how I was going to incorporate the two, but lo and behold, I discovered the art of street painting. And that's when the two actually came together. You know, it's funny when you look at your life and you oftentimes feel like you're moving in these kind of sideways directions. You're not sure how they line up, but eventually you get to a place and you're thinking, huh, okay, that's why I had to go that way, because now I'm here and I couldn't have gotten here without that. So that's how I felt about the classical training in Florence with my BFA background. So the street painting became an instant obsession for me as an artist because of several things. The first thing is that it is created in a public space in front of people. It's actually a type of performance art. And being an artist that had worked in my studio most of my life, this was a new thing for me, a new dynamic as far as the art making process goes. I didn't realize that I enjoyed sharing the process so much with people until I got out on the street and started drawing. And what I found that was so amazing about that was the exchange of ideas and energy, and the conversations and the questions that came up about the practice were extremely invigorating to me and just priceless, you know, and invaluable. I got so much from the audience that was coming to see the work that it kind of had a life of its own. It was this new dynamic to art making. So that's the one reason why I enjoyed it so much. The second reason that I enjoyed it was that it's ephemeral in nature. It's, you know, performance-based, process-based. These paintings that I make, or these images, have a very short lifespan. They, as soon as you put a mark down on the ground with the chalk pastel, which is the traditional way that we make them, it starts disintegrating and disappearing. So there's no attachment to this artwork. There's no attachment to, you know, what you're making and what you're presenting. So this was very interesting to me, because all my life I had created work that I, you know, coveted, or that I had to kind of take care of, or that I was passing on to someone else if they purchased a piece, and it was kind of like giving up a part of myself. But this way, with the ephemeral artwork, it was about the process. It was about the creation of the piece. Of course, we always love to get a great photo of the piece at the end and appreciate it, admire it, enjoy it. But for me, it was that journey from the concept to the last stroke that I found to be most valuable. So those are the two things that really resonated with me as an artist. I didn't even know I had this affinity for these qualities until I actually practiced the art form. And it was like someone opened up a whole new world for me. So yeah, I have kind of leaned towards the fringe or untraditional types of art practices since then. And it's been a great adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you share your works? Like, we'll love to see that.
Sure. Yeah. Let me share screen. Yeah, here we go. So can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes,
but
yes,
not in...
yes, but you can go to the full screen, please.
Yeah, hold on one second. Okay, sorry, you guys, I'm not familiar with this. Here we go. Okay, share, here we go. Okay, great. Okay, yeah, this is, let's see, I've got a wide variety of photos here. And I'm gonna start with just a couple that will show you. There we go, okay. So here's a piece that, let me move this out of the way. There we go. Okay, so this is an early street painting that I created at a public festival in California. And let's see if I can, there we go, I can make that bigger. This is an early 3D work that I created from an imaginative concept, which was based on a fantasy idea about Egypt and a mummy escaping from its tomb. So as Shoma mentioned earlier, or I think Andrila mentioned earlier, that I like to incorporate humor and some engaging aspect to the piece, because I'm trying to relate to not just adults, but children. There are a lot of children that come to these events. And for me, the younger generations, the youth are who I really want to tap into, because they're going to see this and take this with them as they grow and become more interested, hopefully, in art or art practices. So I want the youth to be excited about the work, as well as the adults, and enchanted by the work. So this piece was just a 12 by 12, it's flat on the ground, and I decided to make the piece look like it was broken through the pavement. And I had,
it's not showing in your screen.
Yes, Ms. Stum, if you can enlarge the picture, I think we're not being able to see it on the screen, as per se, so if you can just enlarge it.
Okay, I wonder why that's happening.
So you have to share the screen.
After you enlarge it, then you share it. After you
enlarge
it and keep it in your window, have a separate window, then you enlarge it. Then you share the screen.
Like every window, they have to give the permission to them.
I see. Okay, so that, can I share that now?
I can tell you.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yes, now it's better.
Technically challenged here.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this is the piece that I was just talking about. And it's made with chalk pastels on the ground. And this one is using the technique called anamorphic projection. Most of my pieces involve this technique. So how that works is that you are designing a piece of art that's on a flat surface that appears to be three-dimensional when you're standing from a fixed point in space called the viewing point. So as the artist designs this, they establish the viewing point. I usually set it at about 4.5 feet or 5 feet high off the ground. That's where most people's eyes are located. And several feet back from the artwork, so that when I take the photo, the entire piece is in the screen. So you establish the viewpoint first, and then you design the artwork around that. So this piece was created that way. And as you can see, it looks like you're looking down into a pit, and there are these figures from a tomb and vases and anything that you would see in an Egyptian tomb of old days, with some murals on the wall. So I've got the mummy coffin down below, and the mummy is actually trying to climb out of that. So the kids really loved this one. They thought it was really interesting and fantastic. And what I liked about this piece was that I was able to incorporate a lot of color and a lot of light. Lighting is also a crucial thing for making realistic objects appear dimensional on a flat surface. So lighting and shading and all of those classical techniques that I learned in Florence were very helpful for this. So my imagination kind of runs wild and comes up with a concept, but then when I actually go to draw the concept or make it on a sketch first, and then I translate it to the street, I'm always conscious of the color, the lighting, the shading, and the shapes and the dimensions. So back in these days when I was creating these early pieces, I didn't really have access to 3D software that a lot of artists use nowadays to create 3D rendered images in the computer. So this was more of me looking at vases, taking photos, references of some of the subject matter that's in the painting, and I'd keep those as references and I'd incorporate those into the drawing. So it's kind of like in the old days of graphic design, when it was cut and paste. We didn't have computers. This was kind of created that way. This is before the advanced Photoshop and 3D programming I was able to use later came into play. So there's that one. And let's see. Let me move to the next one. Does anyone have any questions while I'm looking for the photos?
I will have the question answer studies in the last, in the end of the discussion. Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Stum, I just have one. Where was this? Where is this art form? Where was this done?
That piece was created in San Francisco. And that was at a festival called the Italian Street Painting Festival. And it's in Marin County. And they've been running that festival for, my goodness, probably 20 some years. When I first started street painting in 1998, there were only a handful of street painting festivals around the US at that time. I'd say probably about 3 or 4. And there were maybe 2 or 3 in Europe. And they're the only ones that I knew of at the time. I think those were the only ones that existed. And in the United States, and not so much in Europe, but in the United States, we're not able to actually go out and just draw randomly on the street. The authorities will put a halt to that and not allow that to happen. So you need a permit to actually do this kind of work. So the work that we usually were doing was at these public festivals. And like I said, at the time, there were maybe 3 or 4. So when I discovered street painting and started doing this, I was so excited that I couldn't wait till I would get to the next festival. And, you know, we would have to wait several weeks or months for the following festival. So I was sure to make sure I hit every single festival, because this was the only way I could practice the artwork. And after about 10 years of doing that, more and more festivals started popping up around the United States. Now there are festivals in many, many cities in the US, and also in Europe, they have expanded. The good news for the European artists was that they are able to actually go out onto the street and create these drawings without a permit. And some of the cities actually support that. They set up areas for the street painters to come and draw, and they set up permitting systems where the artists can go get a permit and draw. And then a lot of the artists in Europe actually made a living doing this. They would just go out and draw every day, set up a tip box, and people would drop tips in their box, and that's how they'd make a living. So that is a very interesting way to practice your art, you know, living on the street, camping, and just going from city to city and drawing. So that was something that I thought was very interesting about the differences between the US and Europe at that time. So, okay, let's go here. Here we'll go to another piece. Let me pull this up. And okay, so this painting, can you see this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so this is a piece that I did also early on that incorporated some of the classical practices that I learned in Florence with a chalk drawing. So this one was done in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta at a festival there. That was a small festival. Because I live close to Santa Barbara, that's my home festival, and Santa Barbara is a sister city of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So we had an exchange happening between the two cities. And they invited several artists, a group of artists from Santa Barbara area, to come down and draw at these, it was kind of a new festival at that time. This was around like 2003, I think, 2004. So we went down, a group of us went down and decided to draw these images in the public plaza there, which was a nice area for guests to come and see. This is a reproduction of a neoclassical painting that I actually fell in love with. And as you can see, I'm just finishing this piece up here, but this was all done with chalk pastel, and it took me about 2 to 3 days to finish this. And you know, rendering these large images, these classical images with pastel on the street really allowed me to explore the application of the chalk, the dimensionality. This isn't a 3D piece, but I'm able to explore, you know, how does that fabric feel? What does that fabric look like? What does her hair look like? How does that feel? How do I add color to that, but make it look representational in a way? So I don't usually practice creating straight reproductions of paintings, but in this case, I did this one that way because I thought it was so beautiful. And you know, it was just a way for me to learn better about applying chalk to the pavement and understanding my limitations. So that one was a lot of fun to do. Let's see.
Tracy, I want to just ask you, how do you develop your concept? First you see the site or then decide, or just you like layout first and then done your work?
Sure, yes. The process for me involves coming up with a concept first, and the concept sometimes will be informed by the location, if that's essential. Oftentimes festivals will have themes. Not all festivals do, but some do. But for my like my private clients that I create drawings for, they will oftentimes have content that they absolutely want in the painting. You know, I have to make a living as an artist, so I do commercial projects for advertising, marketing, entertainment, transportation, communications companies around the country. And when I engage in those projects, of course, they want their message to be displayed in the artwork. So that's a compromise that I have to deal with as a professional, but it's fine. I actually don't mind that. I kind of like working within the restraints of you know, a project. If somebody comes to me and says, you know, here's the 4 walls that you have to work within, I actually enjoy that because I try to push those walls out a little bit. But at the festivals, we are free to paint whatever we want usually. And so for me, it starts with the concept. Then the concept is, you know, I actually have a journal where I keep on my phone, it's a list, a running list of ideas. So if I'm out somewhere and I come up with an idea, I just throw it on the phone and I'm like, okay, this is my list. I can get back to this at some point. If I need a drawing, I can just go down the list and pick something that I like. So that's how the concept starts. Once I have the idea, then I start drawing. And I do actually like to draw by hand. So these days I draw on my iPad. I have an iPad Pro and with a pencil, and I love it. I just go crazy on that, and I'm able to develop concepts very quickly with that. It used to be more traditional with paper on a drawing table, but because I travel so much and I'm on the go, I like to take the iPad and I can work on sketches and things while I'm traveling. So when it gets to that phase where I actually have the design, and if I need help with like 3D components through 3D rendered objects or scenes, then I have a couple of team members that work with me who are experts at that. I'm no expert at that, so I leave that to the experts. Excuse me, but I will get them involved in the project and art direct them, and then we can come up with a beautiful comp that's finished, and that's what I will work from when I get to the street. So once I have the artwork, I get to the street, I will transfer it with a number of methods through a grid technique or freehand drawing or projection sometimes, whatever is necessary. And then I start drawing. So for me, the bulk of the work is the prep work that goes into the piece before I even get to the street. So that's a typical way for me to create the artwork. But I say that sometimes I wind up going to festivals where I don't know what the street is like. I don't know what kind of surface I'm going to have. I don't know what kind of space I'm going to have. Or I have not had any time to prepare, and I have to look at that and come up with something very quickly. So those have yielded some very interesting results over the years. And I don't typically work that way because it's a lot of stress and pressure. But I can, if I get to a space, something comes to me and I say, okay, I'm going to start drawing. And I just get my drawing stick out, start drawing, and then something usually comes out of that, which is great. So I have to have a lot of faith in myself and a lot of trust in myself. And over the years, I've kind of accepted that. But, you know, sometimes you fail. Sometimes you'll come up with an idea and you'll try to execute that, and then it doesn't work out the way you thought. And that's a learning process too. So I say that's pretty standard. Yeah. So, I mean, most artists, I think they do that. They do their research, you know, they think about their concept, they gather their resources and assets that they need, and then they go about composing the picture, the image that they're going to make, or developing that image. And it's the same for us. You know, it's no different. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so speaking of that, I'm going to show you, here's another slide of this one is, this is a classic example of myself and my team working on a large, very large piece. We did this is a giant mousetrap game that we did at a festival in Florida. And as you can see, there are 4 of us there working, and each one of us has a drawing stick. And so when we draw these images, because they're so large, we stand up and we draw them as a scenic artist would. That way we can see the perspective and the scale much easier than sitting on the ground. But here you can see the grid marks are on the ground. We placed a large grid on the ground so we could transfer our drawings. And because I had a team of artists working on this, I had to have the preparatory drawings executed meticulously so that everybody could follow along without having much deviation. And so that we spent a lot of time getting those together, and here we are drawing the basic outline of the piece on the ground. So it's just kind of like a map. We just follow the map and put in the components, and then we start coloring. Usually what we do is we'll get the drawing down first, and we'll start at the top and work our way down with color because we don't want to step on what we've just finished. So there is a little bit of a strategy involved in how we work these drawings out. Okay, so let's see. I've got a couple more here. Let's go back to this one. I can close out. And here's a piece that I did at the Nandan Center. Let's see. Let me make that a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so this was a classic example of one of those situations where I got to the site and I didn't actually know what I was going to do because I had not seen the site prior to arriving. And when I looked at the site, there was this really interesting platform with a railing around it that kind of protruded out into an angle. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, that actually could be interesting for a piece where I incorporate the shape of that environment into the drawing. So I didn't have a sketch for this. I didn't have an idea. I just went out there and looked at this and I thought, okay, I'm going to make this look like it's breaking into the pavement and look like there's a cavern that connects with the background behind the piece. So this was, I think, about a 3-day drawing, sketching out the outline, the perimeter, and then filling in the shading and the lighting to make this work. So this was a challenge for me, a technical challenge at first, but then once I kind of resolved how I was going to approach this, it worked out really nicely. And this is my husband Shayak playing on the painting and showing how you interact with a piece. So in this case, because there were going to be a lot of people walking across the painting, I thought, well, since I'm working with chalk, I really don't want to put chalk where people are going to interact. So I kind of carved out that walkway and left that as part of the design so that people could enjoy stepping onto that piece without destroying the artwork. And it worked out pretty well. So that one was a lot of fun. And here I'm going to show another one that is, okay, this one is a piece that I did in Canada. It's a similar kind of thing where I created a breakout in the pavement and we've got a scene down below. This one was created for the Toronto Tourism Board of Canada. And we did this painting in Montreal as one of their locations, satellite locations. We did several around the country. And this one was highlighting the scene of Toronto and getting people to want to come to Toronto and visit Toronto. So this one was right by a subway entrance. People were coming out of the subway station there. And so we drew this on the ground, created a cracked pavement surface so that people could actually walk around the piece without destroying the artwork, which is really nice. And it was very successful. A lot of people had a good time with this one and loved it. And it was, you know, kind of an unexpected thing. You walk out of the subway and you see this piece of art on the ground. What's going on there? So people stop, they want to take a look. And as soon as they get to the viewing point, they see, oh my gosh, this looks like it's dropping down into the pavement. So it was very delightful for visitors. And these kind of pieces are very engaging with the public. People love taking photos of this kind of artwork. So for an advertising campaign, it's very, very smart because it does garner some interest and excitement and something unexpected. So this campaign was very successful for our clients, and they were very happy that we could create some really kind of jaw-dropping artwork for them. Yeah.
Feel this particular composition is very complicated. And like I want to ask you one thing, that in your work, I feel that perspective is very important, right? So how do you play with that?
Yeah, the perspective is something that is, designed into the piece. So for instance, somebody, a festival or a client will say to me, you have this much space to work with. So I'll take a note of that. If it's 10 by 10 feet or 20 by 20 feet, something like that, then I have that. But I usually like to get photos of the area because I want to see if there's any kind of cast shadows that are going to be hitting the artwork at any specific point of the day where you're taking photos. So imagine that the artwork takes 2 days to complete. I need 2 full days. That means the photography for the piece finished will happen at the end of the second day, which is usually around 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So if there are a lot of trees or light posts or things in the area that are casting shadows across it, then it's going to ruin the illusion. So I make sure that I'm clear or free of that kind of thing, either in full sunlight or full shade is fine. So that's important. So the environment's important. How the traffic layout is happening in that area is important. Are people going to be walking over that area? Can we divert them? So all of those things are really important. But once that is established, then I usually get a photo of the space, or I'll take a photo of the space, and from the perspective or vantage point that I want people to see it from. So if I'm lucky enough to be there, I can go take a picture, stand where I want people to stand, and then I have a great little kind of like drawing surface to work with on my iPad. I have a picture, I can just draw right on top of that. If I don't, then I get photos sent to me and hopefully do the best I can. But if I feel like the photos aren't working, then I actually have some grids that I've created in Photoshop over the years that I can put into my iPad or my computer and start drawing on those. And then I just translate those to the street. So the perspective is very important. What happens with anamorphic projection is that, when we look at things in perspective, we see to our eye, we see a diminishment in scale and space as things move away from us. But when you're using the anamorphic technique, what happens is, because the camera will compensate for the forced perspective or the distance, you have to draw things in the distance very large, and everything in the foreground has to be very small, because the camera will flip that and make it work in perspective so that everything kind of winds up being the right scale in the end, in the photo. So you have to train yourself to think about putting these drawings down on the ground the opposite of how you would see them in nature. It's kind of a tricky thing. Once you get used to it, then it becomes second nature, and you go, oh yeah, this area down here, the first 2 or 3 feet of the drawing is probably the most crucial part, because that's where all the detail will go. As you move away from the viewing point, it becomes much more graphic, and you don't have to put so much detail because you won't see that detail. It becomes very big and stretched out. Also, one thing to remember about the anamorphic technique is, because you're in one point as a viewpoint, you're standing one spot, as things move away from you to the sides and out, they become distorted on an angular kind of axis. So they're moving this way. As they get wider and they move out, they become more distorted. So there's a lot of distortion that comes with these paintings. And when you look at them from the backside, you can't tell what they are. It's just an odd abstraction. But when you stand in the right spot, everything comes together through the camera lens with the actual natural perspective, and you get a nice result. It's a believable result. So that's where the trick of designing this comes into play, is understanding how that works. I'm going to actually pull up a picture right now of a piece that I did from, this was at the Kalagoda Art Festival in Mumbai. And this was, you can see the painting here. it looks very strange and elongated and distorted. This is exactly what I was talking about. So as you move away from the camera, you'll see that there's a lens set up where all those people are standing and people are taking a picture through that lens, that viewing lens, which kind of works like a camera as well. But the geometry of the piece is that it's getting stretched and elongated as you move away from that lens. So this is a good example of how that looks from the backside. And let me see if I have a picture of that finished. Let's see here. No, I don't, but here's another one. I can show you kind of from an angular view. Okay, this one is not so elongated, but you'll see that it is from the side angle.
Government Art College, right?
Yeah, this was at the Government Art College. Yep. Mm-hmm. And this was for a workshop that I did there with the students back in, I think, 2009.
Yes.
And again, this is another one of those situations where I didn't have a picture of the area where I was going to be working before I got there. So I didn't really know what to expect. But once I arrived and I saw this beautiful walkway, I thought, gosh, this would be great to incorporate the walkway into the overall feel of this painting. So here I am. You can see that those fish are kind of large in the foreground there. And you can see that the lily pads that I'm drawing are kind of about the same size, I'd say. Let's see. So the finished picture of that is, okay, so that's this one. So this is, you can see how I incorporated the existing walkway and the curb and the plants on the right and left into the drawing. I wanted them to be part of that drawing. But you know, the fish, as they move away from us, their size is actually looking the same. But in the other photo, you can see that the fish in the front, close to the vase, was a little bit smaller than the other one. So there's a scale change in those fish as they go back. But because of the camera, they actually look the same size when you look from this direction. So yeah, the distortion is what I find really fascinating about the pieces, and understanding how that distortion increases or decreases depending on where you're standing and where you're moving is always a never-ending source of fun for me. Trying to get that right is a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The way you play with the space is really amazing. Like.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you know, it's like people ask me, they say, do you?
I had a.
Yeah, sure, Monisha.
Yeah, I wanted to see if there is any 3D painting on a vertical plane.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Should I show you one right now?
That would be great.
Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a mind twister, but I'll show you that one. Hold on one second. And okay, so this one is a piece that I just did a month or two ago. And this is at our new museum in New Jersey. It's our museum's called Tilt. It's a Tracy Lee Stum museum. And we decided to go with the name Tilt because it references something that's askew or something that's not centered or balanced, or it's a little bit off. So a lot of these pieces are about that. And so this piece, if you can imagine that this piece is created on a wall and a floor. And because of the photo and the way it's designed, it looks like it's something that's just on a wall. But this is, so the two guests that are interacting here, the top one is my husband Shayak, and the lower one is my friend Vincent. They're actually laying on the ground in this piece. And the part where the right side of the Statue of Liberty's head is actually on a wall. So let me see if I can find a photo of that. And I will share that with you. because I think it's hard for you to understand, you know, how this actually looks without seeing this photo. So can you understand what I'm saying? That the part of it's on the wall and part of it's on the floor?
Kind of the junction, at the junction maybe. Between
Yeah, the junction where the gentleman with the red shirt is
Right.
laying down. Yeah,
Right,
that's where it's happening. And so, yeah, let me see. I'm going to try to pull up a image here of the piece on the side so you can see what it looks like. Okay, let me. Yep, here we go. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so now you can see how this is working, right?
Right.
This one is, you'll see that there's a kind of a lighter area running right down the center where people are standing. So that's the floor, and then the section above is the wall. So it's kind of amazing how these can work that way. They work with multi-surfaces. You know, you can do 2 walls and a floor, you can do 4 walls and a floor, you can do a ceiling with 4 walls and a floor. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I'll see if I have a few more of those photos that you can take a look at. But yeah, we actually do a lot of pieces now, not just on the floor, but on the wall and the floor. Okay, here's another one I'm going to pull up. And then I'll pull up a second one behind it, which shows you kind of the workings of the piece. So let's see here. Okay, so this one is a floor and a wall piece. It's actually several walls and a floor. So the guest is standing on the floor, and the part below her is actually on the floor. And then the wall is behind her, and then also to the left on the piece. So this is, we call this one our warped hallway. It's an architectural piece where the components are very skewed and kind of wavy and not very stable looking. So this is, you know, it's a full environment at this point. So she's standing on the floor, and now I'm going to show you another piece. Another picture of that same piece, which is, here's the photographer taking some photos of that. And you can see now where the floor is and where the walls are.
Yep.
So from the camera, it looks different when you stand in the right spot. This is not the right spot, but you can see how they're interacting there. And, you know, it's really amazing how it changes the entire feel of the space. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah. I hope that answered your question.
These are not ephemeral. Are they more permanent in nature?
These are permanent now because they're in our museum. And
Yes.
The museum is, you know, it's an attraction-based museum. It's where people can come and take photos and enjoy with their family and their children. And we have 26 unique illusions in the museum space, and they have to be permanent for a certain amount of time. So we painted them with permanent paint. We sealed them, and, you know, maybe 9 months to a year from now, we're going to start changing those out and making new ones.
Right.
So we want as many people as we can to come and enjoy that and experience that. So sometimes, you know, a permanent piece is required, but it's a different animal from the ephemeral pieces that we create with chalk. So let's see. I could probably.
Tracy, I always have seen that whenever you join in workshop or something, that you choose perishable materials. So is there any specific reason that you don't want to use permanent medium?
No, there's really no reason not to. I mean, oftentimes if we're doing a workshop where the environment or the facility is allowing me to do a permanent piece, I'm happy to do a permanent piece for sure, because then more people can come and see it. But oftentimes we're only doing them in places where there's going to be a lot of foot traffic. And, you know, so if I do it with chalk, then it's going to just wear away. So that's kind of why I mostly do it with chalk, because if there are going to be people walking there and they need to use the space for something else, then I'll just, you know, let it wear away. But you know, if a permanent piece is wanted, then yeah, I mean, absolutely interested in doing that. You know, I've done several permanent pieces in Kolkata. I did a piece for the Durga Puja festivities in 2014, and that was a permanent piece with Partha Dasgupta, and you know, so that was gonna last for a long time, and many people coming by to see it and interact with it. So it just depends on the requirements. Yes, exactly.
So as far I remember, when you come to Shantiniketan, you prepare some chalks as your, like, you made, right?
Yes, I make my own chalk pastels. The reason we do that is it's more economical than purchasing pastels usually. And you can actually, you know, create your own custom colors that way. So there are lots of manufacturers here in the US now that are doing handmade batches of pastels, and their pigments are quite good and their prices are good. So I use them a lot, but the best pastels I've ever used have been the homemade. They just they don't have any fillers in them. They're loaded with pigment. It's pigment and a basic binder. And so you can get really rich colors with really nice coverage with the homemade pastels. And they're fun to make too. So
that can be arranged a different workshop for that.
yeah, that would be actually a blast, because then the students could see the difference between the store-bought and the homemade. You know, getting a piece of pastel that's almost pure pigment, you're just not going to get the same quality. So okay, let's see. What else would you guys like to see? I have so many different types.
Show us.
Okay, I might just start going through the, oh, here's a vertical piece. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, this one is, okay, here's a permanent piece, right? And that's me on the ladder with two of my colleagues that are working with me. So we've got a floor piece happening here and a wall piece. And this was for a campaign for an auto manufacturer. And they sent us to like 5 different cities around the US where we were creating these anamorphic pieces that were showcasing an aspect of the car, the performance of the car. And one of the cool parts of this project was that we incorporated augmented reality into the piece, so that this piece became animated. When we were finished and people were taking photos, they could see an actual car driving on the roads that we created in these pieces of art. But here's an example of a vertical wall piece that then seamlessly dies into a floor piece. So that's working. So, you know, we're working on it together. Simultaneously, there could be several artists working at the same time, creating those pieces. And let me see if I have another one like that.
Here's I have a special request to show you that Dalai Lama walk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's one of this was one I did in Kolkata as well. This was for a workshop, and it was, again, I didn't know where I was going to be doing this drawing, and I needed to do something in an hour. So this one was with pastel, and I decided to use part of the wall and part of the street there, and create a little origami floating crane. That was, you know, it was basically just a demo to show how I set up my drawing area and how I get the perspective lines to kind of fall into place, and how I shade and color, and also the fact that I don't have to be relegated just to the floor. I can actually use any surface that's around. So yeah, that's an example of a wall floor quick piece. And yeah, here's the finished piece. It was photographed later in the day. Yeah. So, you know, it doesn't have to be a big painting. It can be a small painting and still be effective. So, you know, just something unexpected and imaginative, and created just so people could see the process.
I like this painting because somebody's image is also seen embracing the painting of yours.
Yes.
Which is not seen in any of your work. I mean, how the people around interact with your paint is another, perhaps one, the kind of painting that we see on the walls of Penang, the old street of Penang, where people actually get confused with the actual window and the painted boy.
Right.
Yeah. So, does it fall into the same genre of painting?
I think it does. I think there's a crossover there. Again, it's it's using a same approach, but I am using chalk pastels and I'm just drawing on the street. But some of those other paintings are much more involved and take a lot of time and a lot of people, right, to do it. But or an artist for many days working on it. It's the same thing. It's just a different, yeah, exactly, same thing. And you can see, like, I'm working on this one. I'm kind of designing this as I'm going. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to make this integrate into the wall. It's kind of this is a very freeing and unrestricted way of working, which I really enjoy.
Lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. I'm going to deviate for a little second here. This is a different one. This one is something I did for another tourism board. This one's in California. And this was for Arizona tourism. Of course, they have the Grand Canyon there. And they wanted to, enhance, or advertise the Grand Canyon as being a place you'd want to go and visit. So we did this piece on the street. And again, this one was done with a paint base, like a tempera paint base, because that washes off. But because it's in a public area and they have to get permitting for this, we couldn't have it there for very long. So they had to be able to wash it off at the end. That's why we do it with the chalk pastels or the tempera paint that washes away. So unfortunately, it'd be great if that was there full time, but it's not. And, that's what kind of, I feel makes these a little bit special, is that you only get to see them for a short period of time. They only exist for a short period of time. So if you happen to be in that area and you get to see one of these, it's quite special. So let's see here.
So can you call it graffiti? Or if not, then what is the difference between that? Like the graffiti and the street painting?
We don't call it graffiti. It's we call it street painting. It's its own art form. It's got its own category, let's say. And I think the difference between graffiti and the major difference between graffiti and street painting is that ours is not permanent. It's ephemeral. It washes away. It's graffiti. What's amazing about graffiti art is that it began as a social commentary or reaction to society or what was going on in society at the time. The graffiti artists that started in New York in the 60s and 70s were basically reacting to the conditions that they were dealing with at that time, and their expression of that was done with tagging and those kinds of things on the sides of buildings and subway trains and all of that. But over the years, the graffiti art form has been elevated so much that it's now being shown in galleries. And these artists are, very prolific and accomplished, and creating these wonderful large-scale murals and paintings, and having traveling shows that are just dedicated to graffiti. We have a Banksy show coming up in the United States this summer that's going to be a major attraction. And, he's like one of the most world-renowned graffiti artists from the last decade. So we have that happening, but those early graffiti artists were, kind of chided or, looked at as undesirable because they were defacing public property, and a lot of people that were getting tagged were not very happy about that. So it's kind of good to see them putting it on canvas now, so that more people can enjoy it. But the difference is that ours doesn't do that. The street painting is, you can take a hose and just wash it away, and there's no damage. So there's no conflict there with the space provider or the building owner, that kind of thing. So that's one of the major differences, I think.
Well, I'm rather curious to know, two things. One is, the ephemeral part of street painting that you do, and the permanence. I mean, after so much of effort, say 2 days and 3 days working on it, then you find it being removed. How much pained or how unhappy you are when you see that painting go? I mean, how do you feel that way? That's one part. And second part is about the audience. Suppose I'm visiting New York, I would like to go to, say, MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art. So is the here in Calcutta, for example, if we have to see some exhibitions, we will go to some galleries. Is the audience the same who would visit these museums, say MoMA, or these galleries, and the street artists, or they are different? What is the audience reaction there? Please.
Oh, these are great questions. Thank you. Well, I'll address the first question about how I feel about the artwork being destroyed. I actually had a really hard time with that on the very first painting that I made. And then the very first painting I made was a chalk piece at the Santa Barbara Festival. It was a small painting, 8 by 8. And it was my first time doing this. So I was very attached to it. It was like my baby. I had just birthed this thing. And then I had to walk away from it. And I had such a hard time with that because I wasn't used to it. And I remember I left the festival, I took all these pictures. Then I came back a couple hours later, I took more pictures. I came back the next day to take more pictures because I just couldn't separate myself from this piece of art that I made. It was highly unusual for me to leave something on the ground and walk away. And I think that after that piece, and I kind of sat down and thought about it, and I had these photos, I thought, okay, yeah, I have a documentation of what I did. I know that a lot of people enjoyed it. It's there. It's just going to have this really short duration. I kind of found that I made peace with that. And I realized that, honestly, the process and the experience that I had getting up to that finished piece was probably more valuable to me than the final finished piece, personally. And so it's like it's a metaphor for everything in life, right? You don't hold on, you don't have attachment, you let go. And when you let go, there's a sense of freedom and liberation. You don't feel sadness. You don't feel any kind of remorse that you've walked away from this thing you've made. So I immediately understood the power of that consciousness, and I claimed that. I said, you know what, this is going to be my mantra from now on. I'm going to make these pieces of art, I'm going to offer them up, and I'm going to start thinking about the next one, because this is a continual journey. It's not just making one piece at a time. Each piece is connected. I'm just moving down the line. So I had to look at it from a larger perspective. Now I can make a piece and I walk away and I'm like, okay, here it is for the public. I'm giving ownership of that piece over to the public. You guys can enjoy it, play with it, destroy it, do whatever you want with it. I don't have an attachment to it. So that has been an amazing awareness for me. It was really, it was like I had to, like I said, it was like being born through a birthing canal. It was really hard to get to that point, but once I got to that point, I was okay. And the second question that you asked me about how do the guests feel and the types of visitors that we have, these kind of pieces I find resonate with just about everyone. It doesn't matter about your age. The age is not important. The history is not important. Your experience doesn't matter. Your philosophies, they're just so unique that anybody can appreciate or find some kind of fascination if they're willing to look in these pieces of art. So they appeal to small children. Young people really appreciate them because they can interact and play with them and take a lot of photos and selfies and things like that. But people that go to MoMA will come by and see these pieces of art and get delight from them and enjoy them as much as the next person. So I think that there's really no discrimination when it comes to the audience. The audience can be anyone. And that's what I find so appealing about this, is that it can reach many more people than maybe if I had these in a gallery. You know, I'd have a specific clientele or customer that would come through and see them, but out in the public arena, they're available for everyone. So that's also what I like about this practice, is that there may be people that wouldn't go to MoMA that would walk by and see this and find something interesting about it and maybe be inspired or intrigued or you know, fascinated by what's going on, and you know, take a little piece of that with them when they leave. So I'm very grateful for that. It's universal. I've been to over 30 countries in the world painting, doing this, and universally across the board, it's the same reaction in every city or every place I go. There's just like, you know, people are just, wow, it's amazing, it's fun, it's cool. It's because you don't see them very often. You know, they're very rare and special. And so I think people like the fact that they're tricked, or their eyes are seeing something that's not real, and their brain is kind of creating this idea that it's real, and there's a fascination there. So the idea of our perception of the world is something that it brings up. You know, there are some things there in the world that you see that you may not recognize, and it sparks something else. And I don't know, there's just a magic to the artwork. That's what I love. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have Mrityunjay Da want to ask something. Mrityunjay Da, you are there? Okay.
Yeah.
There?
Thank you so much. Tracy, you're fantastic, undoubtedly, you know. I met you once, a few years back in Calcutta. You came here for Chalchitra.
Yes.
That's a fantastic site-specific work you've done. Well, what a well, you know. In Kwabga, very recently in Bengal village, you have worked. Can you remember? Yeah,
yes,
now show us, please. That's a fantastic work, I've seen. And also Durga Puja one, if you can show us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I believe that, one should have strong sense of perspective and light and shade. So these two things, creates that.
I'm drawing also. Absolutely.
Drawing, with the perspective and light and shadow, create the 3D effects. But I also want to know that you are calling it street art. I will call it illusion art. So what do you think of that? What is your opinion?
Yes, I think, street art is a broader practice where you don't have to make optical illusions to be a street artist. The street painters can make, the traditional method is reproducing classical masterworks. So if you're making, a Botticelli or a Raphael or something like that, then yes, that is street painting for sure. That's the traditional method. And in fact, there's a festival in Italy that is the oldest running festival, which is the originator of this Western practiced art form. And they require you to create a Christian religious themed piece to be in the festival. It's a competition. So they don't really actually, there are artists that come and make contemporary pieces, but it's really based on the masterworks. So yes, what I do, the 3D pieces are definitely illusions and illusion pieces. So you could call them illusion artwork for sure.
Because street art is very much in, nowadays it's a new trend, I think, in Europe and America, because they want to share it with the public, the mass. It's not anymore for the class, because only the museum, gallery, and etc., they are coming out. And that's a very interesting thing. But you have gone further, you create illusion art, which is really amazing. I have seen you work in Puri Sea Beach in Odisha. Is that right? A few years back, working on the sea beach in Odisha.
Yes, I did. I did one in.
You did. I have seen you
yes,
working there.
Bhubaneswar, yes.
Yeah, in Bhubaneswar, yeah. But it is in
Yes.
the Puri sea beach, you know. I have seen you working there. Can you show those? Show us those paintings.
Oh, Sudarshan Oh yes. Wait, let me see if I can find that one.
It's fantastic. You know, all the dolphins and things are there. You know.
Yeah, that was a really interesting project because working with Sudarshan was fantastic.
Yes,
He's a
Sudarshan.
lovely
You're
guy.
working with Sudarshan. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. It was tough for me though because there was a lot of sand on the surface where I was working because I was right at the beach, and you know, trying to draw with pastel or paint with sand is definitely not an easy thing. So there's a lot of maintenance and sweeping and things like that. But we did have some volunteers, students,
Yep.
and they did a great job. And so this slide that I'm showing right here, this was done in Shillong at a festival up there. And these were the students that were there for the festival, and they helped me draw this piece. So I basically created a very simple geometric outline of a pool and some, you know, column shapes there that we could stand on, and they helped me fill it in, and they, you know, were able to see how abstract it was in the creation process. But when you take the photo, it looks like this pool that we're standing on. So I really enjoy working with students that way because they're always just fascinated. I think I can find, let's see, the picture of the one in Puri. Yeah, let me see if I can find that one.
And I'm lucky I was there. I was watching how you're creating that illusions fantastically. It was unbelievable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's just gonna take a minute here because yeah. Anyway, anyone else have a question while I'm looking for that photo?
It would have been wonderful if one of the lady would have stood on the pool. In the photograph, if one of the ladies could have actually sat or stand on the pool. That could have, it's always on the edge. The photographs is always on the edge.
Right, because we want it to look real, but if they're standing on the pool,
so
then it looks like
the three girls. One could have been actually standing on the pool to make it more dramatic. Yeah.
Indrila, I think we have a number of questions from the students. If we can take them up, probably we are taking a lot of time from Tracy.
Yes, yes, there are actually a list of questions. Can we go straight to the questions?
Sure.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Yes, yes,
So,
because students' questions are always more important.
lots of questions actually. What kind of chalk, Shubhajit Das, what kind of chalk is she using for those paintings? I think she answered that part of that question was answered. But in terms of material, I think they wanted to ask what sort of material do you use now to create that?
Sure. I actually have a variety of materials that I use. So I'll just go down the list for the traditional street painting with the chalk pastels. I will sometimes use a tempera paint base because tempera paint is easily washed away with water. And then I will chalk on top of that. And the chalk pastels I use are not oil pastels, they're chalk pastels. So you can use, there's a brand that I really like out of Korea called Mungyo, and they sell it in India. You can find it in New Delhi, or you can find it online on Instagram. I know that you can find it. It's called Mungyo, and they make a really nice palette of 48 colors in a box. It's great. But again, the homemade chalks are really terrific. For the permanent pieces, I use acrylic paint, acrylic artist paint.
Thank you. Okay, Aditya Sahab, of course, he's a student, I guess, and very interested in this kind of art form. Ma'am, what are the things, he's asking, what are the things we need to keep in mind when we are trying to create this art form?
Okay, the things that you need to keep in mind are that it's a very physical practice. It's, you know, you're going to be on the street, or you're going to be walking maybe on a wall in the street. So I say that you probably need to consider getting a pad, a foam pad or knee pads or anything like that to sit on and move around on, because it is hard on your knees and your legs. Also, you know, if you're working out in an environment, you're going to need to make sure that you're hydrated and that you are, you know, not just working and not paying attention to your health during this whole process, because as an artist, you would know that sometimes we get so caught up in our work that we forget to take care of ourselves and drink water and those kind of things. So you got to pay attention to that. But also when you're working with your hands on the surface, it can be very rough on your hands. So I like to use like a cloth glove as a first layer of protection. And then I'll put a latex glove over that. And then I can blend and rub the chalk with that. If you're using paintbrushes, you don't have to worry about that so much if you're using a tempera paint or acrylic paint. But certainly with the chalk, it's all the physical aspects of the creating the piece that are the things you have to pay attention to. Also, if you're new at this, you probably want to try some samples or areas where you just play around with how the chalk works. So, you know, you can put one layer of chalk down. I do a lot of layering on my drawings, which give them a lot of luminosity and dimension and for the detail. And a new person trying this would probably have some difficulty with creating too much chalk excess. So you have a lot of powder, then you can't blend very well. So you have to actually practice putting down less chalk and blending it out more. So there's a lot of information about this. And actually I have a book. We really didn't talk about that. I have a book out. It's called The Art of Chalk. It was published in 2016, but it's kind of like a manual for anyone that wants to get into street painting and street art. I think you can find it online at online retailers like Barnes & Noble or Amazon, places like that. But it's a book that's got tips from over 50 international artists about street painting. It's how to set up a grid, how to set up a 3D piece, how to set up you know, your drawing area, what kind of materials you should use, how to apply them, best ways and techniques, that kind of thing. So we have all kinds of little tips in there. If you're interested in that, I would suggest you get that book. But yeah, I mean, if you have any questions too, you can always reach out to me personally. And I get questions all the time about specific details regarding how to do street painting. So feel free.
Oh, thank you. That'll be wonderful, I'm sure. Okay, so actually lots of questions pouring in. Anurag Paul is asking, your artworks are really connected with the ambience of the place. So do you arrange your color palette by taking reference from a particular site, or is it pre-decided?
It's usually pre-decided because I like to have a variety of things there in case I'm needing a color I didn't expect. So if I've designed a piece and there are primarily two colors that are the main components of the piece, and I'll certainly have a lot of those colors, but I always bring extra colors in case I want to, you know, change the color up. I'm not someone who's very rigid with my drawing when I get to the site and start drawing and start painting. I will have the reference, but if I have an impulse or an idea to change something and, you know, adapt a color, adapt the drawing design, I will do that. So I like to have that freedom, and I like to have all my tools there in case I want to do that. So I would say have everything you think you would need and then a little extra.
Thank you. Actually, lots of questions. We might run out of time. But there's a question somebody's asked me directly. It's like, you know, India is a culture of diversity and very much a colorful country, if you can say. So what aspect of our country's, you know, vibrancy does, you know, attract you as an artist? In painting 3D, because you've done in several parts of the country. That's, I think, that's the.
What attracts me to a particular place? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. You know, I actually don't really have a favorite place to work, or I try to go into each place and find something amazing about that individual location. So I would say that, you know, probably looking for an area where there's a lot of public engagement, a lot of people coming by that will see the artwork. That's always a plus. You know, I don't want to draw a painting that's kind of, you know, off in a corner somewhere where nobody's going to see it. I want people to see it. And I want there to be activity in the area. I do like working in spaces that have, you know, regular foot traffic or activity. But I do actually, when I'm working, like to have a little area for myself where I keep my supplies and things like that. That's not in the way of the public, so that I can easily kind of make decisions and mix paint or mix colors or do whatever I need to do. But yeah, I really don't have like a favorite kind of place, just where there's a lot of people. And also, importantly, where the surface is good. So if the surface is good, then we're gonna have a good result. But I've painted on many, many surfaces, like concrete, pavement, pavers, stone, blocks, like you name it, I've pretty much drawn on it. And it's really rare that I come across a surface that I can't paint on. So, but nice concrete and asphalt is good. This picture that I put up on my screen is, if you guys can see it, it's the piece I did with Sudarshan Patnaik down in Puri. This was, gosh, about 10 years ago. And it's a very large painting. I got there and he had already created the dolphins and the whales coming out of the waves in the sand sculpture. So I thought, well, I'm going to have some of his dolphins kind of jumping into the underground waterways that go to the ocean. And this was about keeping the water clean. This was a Keep the Water Clean campaign. And we wanted to make sure that people were aware of like the drainage that goes into the ocean and how that should be maintained and improved and cleaned. So I have beautiful fish floating in there, some dolphins. And most of this painting was created, you know, just on the spot with, you know, hand drawing and students painting with me. So this was a big project. It was challenging with all the sand and things like that, but I think we came out with a decent result. So yeah, everyone was really happy with.
I was talking about this one. This is a fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen you working.
Okay.
Super.
Hope after this pandemic we'll get Tracy in India and we'll do the workshop and like finish all the queries which we have. We have a lot of queries that will not end up with this night. Like I have only one single question, that what are the future for this particular form, Tracy? What do you feel?
The future for this art form, I think, is that it's going to continue to grow and expand and develop. There are more and more artists that are choosing to take this path of art practice. I would say that I am probably second or third generation street painter from US festivals. Now we're probably at generation 6 and 7. And every year there are younger people that want to get involved in this and start practicing. And because we have such a abundance of festivals in our country and in North America, Mexico too, and Canada as well, there are many opportunities for people to practice this art form now. So it's growing, certainly with the opening of our new museum and other subsequent museums with this artwork. I think that more and more people will become aware of it. There are many people that don't even know this art form exists. So getting that out there and finding new audiences is going to be exciting for us, and just kind of touching as many people as we can. As a side note, you know, our museum is getting really great reviews from the local press and media and the guests that come to visit. So it makes me feel good that they're having a nice experience there, and that children are being inspired, you know, and they're just finding some magic with the artwork. So I think it's just going to continue to grow.
Thank you. We have questions of Shahashrabdi and Shitodre. Both are actually connected questions. If something's wrong in the middle of the art, How do you fix that? And also Shitatri's question is, if you have to fix in a 3D painting, if you have to make corrections, how do you do that? Both are somewhat similar questions.
Sure. The best news for you guys about this kind of artwork is that it's very forgiving, and you just take a damp sponge, go clean off that area that you don't like, and just redo it. So it's very fast, a very easy way to change something. If you've done it with chalk pastel, you're going to want to put some cardboard or something like that down so that you can walk across the artwork to get to that area that you want to correct. But like I said, you could just wipe it down and start chalking again. So a very easy way to correct a drawing.
I think I just wanted to mention one thing, you know, that during my childhood days, almost 50 years back, this particular road painting, painting on the roadside and using the chalks are there. And that's mainly with the different types of goddess, that is Narayana or Shiva, everything. And all of us are actually, all the kids, we surround that particular painter who is drawing on the streets, all these big things. It's really amazing for us at that time. So it's there in India for a long period of, in our place for a long period of time. But the one you actually introduced to us is actually giving that 3D things, which is something which is an additional one. But street paintings are pretty popular in this part of the country.
Yes, I'm very familiar with this, and I have long questioned whether the European tradition may have borrowed from the Asian traditions, and or if they spontaneously arose around the same time. You know, the tradition in Europe goes back to, I'd say, the Renaissance era, where this art form was practiced, probably crudely practiced, but practiced as drawings on the street of deities, right? Or Christian religious symbols and in offering for public festivals and things like that. And I know that India has a very long history of this, and in fact may have been one of the originators of this type of ephemeral art making process. So I'm not entirely sure where it all started, but I know there's got to be a connection somewhere. And I did see a drawing in Varanasi years ago that someone was doing, I think it was Shiva, a very large drawing on the street. And I was amazed and surprised and excited to see that, because I had just started getting into street painting at that time. And I thought, wow, this is a, you know, this is exactly what we're doing. It's just, you know, it's a different content, but it's fantastic. And I'm just, I'm very honored and pleased that the youth that I encounter are just finding this so fascinating and interesting. So it keeps us going, and you know, kind of pushing the limits of what this art form could provide.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. In fact, with that, we've come to the end of this session, and thank you so much, Ms. Stum, for that wonderful, invigorating session that we've had. It will be etched in our memory forever, I can say, for everybody. I will request Ms. Ina Bose, our Director, HR, Industry Connect, and Corporate Communication of Sister Nivedita University, to give her good thanks. Ma'am, over to you.
Tracy, my dear, Tracy and Shayok, I see Shayok around. Both of you are doing awesome work. For the last maybe 1.5 hours, you have kept us mesmerized, glued. Thank you so much. But before we leave, I would request both of you, especially Shayok, if you can leave some message behind for our students. And most of them are here. They have joined, and maybe others will subsequently catch up over the live YouTube and Facebook shows. What would be a message for them about the opportunities, scopes in this particular field of work, especially for the students back home, Shayok?
Yes, Inadi, thank you so much. It was quite fascinating to the journey of art. And the one thing I would say from the Bengali and the Kolkata, the artist wanted to be and for future and has a dream kind of, from village or suburb as I think to me, rather than it's important to learn the skills and tools and the be creative and the critical aspect of the art, but we have to build up the self-esteem that artist can be a profession like journalist or lawyer or doctor. So I learned hard way, and later in life it took time because I'm from Konnagar in Hooghly district. So this was hard to believe and to see the future that what artist can be. So we have ignored that everything designed and formed of our society by some of the visual aspect the artist has been involved, like morning toothpaste packaging to the evening the watching Netflix, the TV or production, and that we don't tell our kids when the parents or like seniors in the movie industry, the advertising industry, how much the production and the visual artist has been involved. Even I would say like even the propaganda for the vote and that the cartoonist and making this kind of amazing statement. So this kind of thing we have seen, but I think there is some sort of, we have to build up the self-esteem. That's kind of like self-confidence. Yeah, if I would go for art and I would stick on this. I would not deviate at some point after my art college or even like we could not. And the matter of fact, it's the art college is very less in Calcutta. So a lot of good students, those who could not get in, I would say still live in hope, and you would not get if one college, you'd stay other college, but still just it's have to be keep in mind that I wanted to be an artist. If that is enough to Shoma, do you think? And Inadi?
Tracy, what about you? What's your message for the students?
You are a self-taught artist, and then how you are like struggling with the art field. So yeah, absolutely. For being an artist, art college is obviously necessary.
Thank you. Tracy?
That was great, Shayak. Thank you so much for saying that. It's important for people to hear from practicing artists and their experiences and their observations. I would add to that by saying that, really trusting yourself and trusting your heart and your inner calling is very important for an artist. It's kind of, for me, it's what guided me to this place where I am right now. And you have to be fearless. You have to be committed. Art doesn't just happen. It's hard work. You really have to spend the time and energy dedicated to your craft and dedicated to your practice. But you also have to have faith in yourself and actually be willing to take those chances and risks where, the world may be pulling you in one direction, but you got to say, you know what, if this feels good for me, I need to go in this direction. I need to follow this because, that's what the universe wants of you. It wants you to live your authentic self, be your authentic self and live your authentic life. So if you are interested in some kind of fringe art form or fringe practice that maybe nobody else gets, and you find that it is really resonating with you, I say go for it 100%. Don't even think about it, just do it and see where it leads you. It's being an artist is not easy. It's a different kind of life for sure. But if you stay committed and you have the support from yourself and your network and your friends and family, then I'd say, you can make something with that passion. So yeah, I'm a big believer in following your dreams. So go for it.
Thank you, Tracy. That was really wonderful. And we all look forward to Tracy and Shayok to have more such sessions, be that in the physical format in the coming months, or more these online formats would also suit us fine, if only you can give us your precious time. Honorable VC sir, would you like to say a few words of thank you to these two artists?
Yeah, I really see. I never thought that I can stay for such a long period of time because I have a couple of other things to do for preparing myself for tomorrow's webinars, but I can't. I have to stay, and you kept me absolutely glued to the this particular session. So I really thank both of you. But I have a request to both of you. Right now we are all trying to be a little bit more creative. That even in this webinar, how we can practice this type of working of these workshops, where students are also participating, putting their drawings, and you people are interacting with them. In that way we can develop our this because we are not sure about when we really can actually have this physical workshops. So we have to find out a way to have these virtual workshops also. Looking forward to that.
Maybe Shoma can take this up with Tracy to plan out a few modalities to have online workshops where
Yes.
students can really benefit, learn.
Demonstrate something. Yeah.
I would love that. That sounds
Thank
great.
you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Tracy.
much.
Thank you
very
once
much.
again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Dasgupta. Thank you, sir, VC sir. Thank you, Mr. Chakraborty.